Hello
Hello, everyone.
and welcome. My name's Leanne,
And my name is Jason. And
and
this
this
is Let's Talk. Today is episode 4, Dimension 3, Mental and Intellectual Well-being.
one of these days we'll get that right, Jason.
One of
But this,
them.
ah, dear, I love it. This is a space where no topic is off limits. We're going to be covering things from well-being to resilience, leadership and money, relationships, mindset, and so much more.
Here at Let's Talk, we bring a different perspective. Ooh, a different perspectives, real stories, and honest conversations. Because the things we don't talk about often end up being the things that are the most important and that matter the most.
Yeah, absolutely. And our goal here is simple. It's to spark new ideas, shift mindsets, and give you practical tools that you can use in your leadership and your life.
So whether you're tuning in today for just some inspiration, some growth, or just a fresh perspective,
Let's talk. Now, this week we have the pleasure of interviewing Alison Lalieu from the Courageous Leadership Hub. Unfortunately, Alison couldn't be with us here live today. So we've had the joy of interviewing her a few days ago, and we're going to share that interview with you now. We're going to be talking about this whole concept of mental and intellectual well-being, a rich conversation, lots of nuggets. I'm very excited to share this with you.
well, good afternoon, everyone. And thank you so much, Leanne. And again, welcome, Ali. Today's topic is on mental and intellectual well-being, the thriving mind, curiosity, learning, and focus. And I'll turn it over to Leanne for the introduction of our guest expert.
Yes. So today on Let's Chat, we're joined by the amazing Alison Lalieu. Alison is a globally recognized ICF PCC leadership coach. She's a speaker and the CEO of the Courageous Leadership Hub. With over a decade of leading teams across the globe, Ali is passionate about developing that transformational leader who leads with courage, with emotional intelligence, and with heart. Alison's also been trained by Brené Brown as a certified Dare to Lead facilitator, and which has equipped her to support thousands of people with the skills to create brave, psychologically safe cultures in the workplace, but also in their life and home. She has also co-authored a global emotional intelligence report with a group called 6 Seconds, and is also a neuro leadership coach and a conversational intelligence coach. Most recently, Ali has joined or launched, I should say, the Inspired Leadership Collective, which is a groundbreaking program exploring the capabilities and capacities of inspired leadership, which both actually Jason and I have recently participated in. And I would highly recommend it to any leader who wants to expand themselves and the impact that they can have on others. It really is a truly remarkable program because it works from the inside out. And I won't say much more about that, Ali. You might want to speak to that shortly. But Ali is wise, she's warm, and she's a deeply loving human who embodies her mission of helping people lead with emotional awareness, intention, and purpose. So, welcome, Alison. Thank you so much for joining us today.
Thank you
Yes,
so
thank you
much,
so much,
Leanne, for
Alison.
a generous introduction. It's always strange hearing things said about yourself, but thank you so much. It's lovely to see you both again.
And
Yes,
Ali,
you too.
just before we dive in, is there anything else you want to add or anything else that you want to share with our listeners today about yourself?
I was hearing you speak about me as a coach, and I thought, well, there was one thing maybe could have been in there was one of the highlights, I'm just sort of this intrepid learner, and I keep studying coaching particularly, but one of my highlights was a whole year with 6 Seconds becoming an EQCC, so a trained emotional intelligence coach. And that really was a very profound exploration of self and self-awareness and how we can bring emotional intelligence to life through coaching. From a personal note, Leeanne, I noticed some Allies slipping in there. We've known each other for some time. I'm Allie to you and Allie to Jason. I guess my top 2 values would be worth sharing. Number 1 is family, and I love my family wholeheartedly. I have 4 children. They're all adult now and 7 grandchildren, and I'm very blessed. They live all within 1 hour of us, some even on my property. So we are very close, and we spend a lot of time together. We have a lot of fun together. And my other value is simplicity, which is interesting because values shift and change over time. And I've had that second value does change. At the moment for me, it's simplicity. So with the way the world is heading into this accelerated wanted to use what is the word I'm looking for? We talk about pace of change, but it feels way beyond that. This acceleration of emotional challenge, probably is what I'm wanting to say. It seems to me that one of my boundaries I want to hold close is simplicity, to put things through a lens of simplicity and see what I'm saying yes to and be very clear on what I'm saying no to, and holding myself grounded that way.
Yeah. And I think that's just such a valuable comment around, we often know what we say yes to, but holding that line in the sand around what we say no to is even more important, I think. And Ali, I know your family as well, and I know your property, and all of it is beautiful. So thank you for sharing that part of yourself with us.
Yes. And, what comes to mind when you said being very clear on what you say yes and no to, when you can lean more into the powerful no, it makes your yes even that much more powerful. Something that I've personally have learned over the years, having been much of a yes person for many years of my life. So I think that will be a great lead in to our first question, if you're ready to go. Okay, so our first question today on mental and intellectual well-being is, why do you think the thriving mind, mental and intellectual well-being are so critically important right now?
Thanks, Jason. It's a great question. Leeanne mentioned in my intro that one of the hats that I wear is I was trained by Dr. Brené Brown in San Antonio in 2019. So over the last 5, almost 6 years now, I have had the gift and privilege of facilitating her courage building program, Dare to Lead, in many, many different cultures and organizations, and also working with her as one of her coaching team, if you like, as a Dare to Lead coach, which is really a specific kind of coaching, which is how do we integrate this courageous leadership in and across cultures. And if there is something that stands in my mind about what Brené is saying at the moment, is what's being demanded of us as individuals and as whole collectives, as teams and organizations, is beyond human scale. And those are 3 very powerful words. We simply weren't wired or engineered to deal with the complexities that we're now facing. And the scale of knowledge is outpacing our capacity at such a rate that people are left feeling very disconnected, very lonely, very isolated. They're struggling. And this emotional dysregulation really comes from a place of, there are such big feelings that sometimes are hard to even name. People can't put a word to the experience they're having, and that can drive thinking and behaviors that lead people to showing up in ways that they don't really want to be or intend to be. And so we're going to need a deep, broad, disciplined commitment going forward. And, you know, if you think the implications of AI for unemployment, if you think of the geopolitical uncertainty at the moment, I just saw in the news this morning that ceasefire in Gaza is not holding. You know, there is such deep trouble and uncertainty across so many countries, and politically we really are in a strange place. So there's an enormous amount of fear, I would say. And things are moving faster than our leadership and our organizations' cultures can adapt. But the thing about fear, now I may mention it a bit in this podcast because it's so new and so relevant, but Brené's new book is called Strong Ground. And she's actually asking us, you know, this whole mindset you're talking about, this mental and this intellectual well-being, is part of us trying to rebalance ourselves and re-find our strong ground, our groundedness in all of this. So because of this fear, you know, she says fear has a very short half-life, which means that our systems have to become more chaotic and management has to become even crueler to maintain a certain amount of fear, and fear is used as the management tool to keep people playing along with us. So, you know, because we're neurobiologically, and I can just think Leeanne would be thinking of this so much, we are so neurobiologically wired for connection with each other. And in the absence of that connection, there's always suffering. There's always suffering. So you know, we're going to need to find that strong ground by respecting and protecting human wisdom. We all have this innate wisdom. It lies within. And making connection foundational. So it's going to become about a relational, deeply human way of finding that strong ground in the midst of this chaos. So for me, mental and intellectual well-being and many other kinds of well-being all inform the thriving mind, because it's going to become increasingly more difficult to find and to hold on to. That's a very long-winded answer, but did it make sense?
Absolutely.
Absolutely.
And what I noticed, Ali, last week we did a session on emotional well-being, right? And we talked about the VUCA world, you know, volatile, uncertain, complex, and ambiguous, and then how that has us feeling brittle and anxious, and the non-linear style of our life, and the incomprehensibility of what's actually going on, and how emotionally it's affecting us, and mentally it's affecting us, right? So I actually picked up that book in a bookshop yesterday and thought, oh, I didn't realize, is this a new book or an old book? And I didn't buy it, but now I wish I had after hearing you speak of that. So
yeah, I think it's been released for about 2 weeks now.
Yeah.
Yeah, and it's interesting, the book, because it validates Brené's original research that informed the Dare to Lead book. Is still, from a very evidence-based empirical way, still holds true, but she's extended a number of the ideas simply because what's emerging in leadership globally in the last even 2 years is, you know, we're needing a deeper, more broader toolkit. And that's probably a lot about what we're talking about today. And so much of it is in this book, Strong Ground.
Okay. Very good. Well, I'm very much looking forward to picking that one up. So book recommendations, Strong Ground from Brené Brown.
Yeah.
Excellent. So Ali, then to add on to that question then, or to add on to your response, how does curiosity then help us deal with fear, uncertainty, and change?
Well, Brené Brown would say curiosity is the skill set of the future. I'm very in favor of this. There's another fellow called Gustavo Rossetti. I love his work. He does a lot of culture work, and I read a quote of his: "The future belongs to those who refuse to let fear dictate their behaviors." I think, you know, curiosity for a thriving mind, it's very helpful to adopt a mindset of how can I understand more about what's going on here, rather than how can I prove I'm right here. And as we've been talking about already today, the advances and the pace, we simply cannot, it's not going to be long before we reach that point of singularity where the human brain is simply no match for AI. And I think unfortunately, as we sit with this deep uncertainty, we often sink even further into holding on to what we thought we knew to be true. And so our beliefs become more entrenched. Our mindsets can become more entrenched. I mean, we know change is a terrifying thing for the human brain, and we've never even begun to contemplate change at the scale we're now facing. So curiosity is it's a really it's an emotional intelligent skill set, and we are looking for leaders who are transformative, and we're not looking for the know-it-alls, the prove-it-alls. We are looking for, as Brené says, we're looking for the leaders who are not here to be right, but to get it right. And the shift in that kind of thinking, we can't get there but through curiosity. So we know that when our brain is uncertain, it craves more certainty, and it craves more predictability, and it craves more control. Yeah. But unfortunately, when we give our brain a story, our brain's not really interested in the accuracy of any story. Our brain will go, whew, thank you for telling me what's going on. Now I get a lovely squirt of dopamine and I get a moment's relief. But unfortunately, the story we're telling ourselves about what's going on doesn't need to be anywhere close to any kind of accuracy. So curiosity interrupts the reflex. We've got to learn to be incredibly curious about ourselves, to develop levels of self-awareness. I think self-awareness is a quest for life. I don't think it ever stops day by day. But to get curious about how and where am I showing up in this way or that way? What's happening around me? This intense questioning that invites us to go, tell me more, help me understand what's going on here. What am I missing? It disarms curiosity, in essence, disarms fear, and it disarms armor. And that's another little differentiating point, because Brené thought her brave leaders, that she was, data leaders about cultivating brave leadership. She thought that what was stopping them from being brave was fear. But in fact, they all said, we're afraid all the time. What stops us is the way we self-protect. So curiosity disarms fear. It also disarms armor, or the way we self-protect. So it's a very, very, very powerful emotional intelligence skill set. I think curiosity builds courage. We don't truly grow until we get out of our comfort zone, and we open and willing to learn or to see things differently. Or, Brené's talking a lot about the tenacity of paradox. We've got to be more comfortable with two sides. There might be truth in both sides. Yeah. And this addiction that our way is the way is not going to be the way of the future. So curiosity builds the courage to even lean into paradox. It supports learning, and there's no question it supports resilience through change. We're being asked to challenge our mindsets and develop a kind of intellectual flexibility going forward. There are several types of thinking we have to get more curious about. Anticipatory thinking is one of them. Critical thinking, strategic thinking, paradoxical thinking, intuitive thinking, pattern recognition, design, creative thinking, symphonic thinking. It goes on and on and on. So the stretch in leadership, that there is a real call to courage here to get intensely curious about this moment and about the many next moments that follow it.
Wow, thank you so much, Ali. I just called you Ali instead of Alison.
That's okay. I'm Ali to you, Jason.
But I do love what you said about how we protect ourselves. It got me to, just kind of think on my own, like when, when do I fall into that, myself, and why? Especially as I get older, and as we get kind of more into ways of doing things, which leads us actually to our next question around, why do you think so many adults lose their curiosity as they get older?
It's sad, isn't it? It's sad. I've got 7 little grandchildren under the age of 7, and I just watch how they go about the world, and it is so beautiful. They notice every small thing, and their appreciation and their gratitude is profound. So it's sad. I've always remembered that Shoshan, that wonderful Japanese concept of beginner's mind here. It reminds us to approach life with the open curiosity of a beginner, even when we are an expert in our field, whatever that might be. It's about wonder, openness, freedom from misconceptions and assumptions. That Shoshan mindset's a real reminder every morning as we wake up to go, I'm alive. No, thank you, I'm alive. What can I notice and observe and witness and see today with fresh eyes? And be willing again to get curious and to challenge how I might have been seeing things. In the beginner's mind, there's many opportunities, and in the expert's mind, there are few. So that was a famous quote from Shunryu Suzuki. All right, now why? Why do I think this happens to adults? This is such a good question. I think as children, play was an integral part of the way we made our way through our days, and we discovered life through play. And of course, we all came from different families of origin. I was born in South Africa, so my early life experience was in Africa, but then I moved to Australia in my early 20s. But we get shaped by our cultures, our people, our families, our schools, our educators, the educational path we follow, whatever work-life path we follow. We get shaped by so many factors, and I think the older we get, the more we armor up, if you like, the more we self-protect, and the more it becomes a little bit risky. Yeah, to be curious. Curiosity can feel risky as an adult. And we start to fear being foolish or looking foolish or being wrong or having the wrong answers or expected to know things and we don't know them. And so, Brené would say choosing curiosity over defensiveness requires vulnerability. And as we get older, our capacity or even our willingness to be vulnerable can decline without an incredible amount of self-awareness. If you think vulnerability is risk, uncertainty, and emotional exposure, if you don't have all 3 of those things, you're not being vulnerable. And as we get older, these things feel risky. Yeah. So we tend just to, it's safer to play it safe. It feels more comfortable to find that comfort zone and operate in that bandwidth as we get older. I recall this, as I'm sure you both do also, just from the brain wiring. Our brain moves to, as we get older, to pathways of efficiency. Mm-hmm. So we take mental shortcuts and we see something, we observe something and we file it a certain way. And then that'll be the go-to because that's the quickest access to that mental map, that kind of meaning making. And so these neural pathways become more established over time. That's the other issue, that I think adults lose their curiosity. And there's a lot of cultural, social conditioning. I think our school system, many workplaces reward answers. They don't reward curiosity. So, curiosity gets suppressed by perfectionism, performance pressure, and fear of judgment. And over time, these forces become real elements in our lives.
Yeah, Ali, thank you so much for sharing that. So many things were popping in my head as you've spoken there in relation to, I love our role here is not to be right, but or not to get it right.
Not to be
Sorry,
right,
not to be
to
right,
get it
but
right.
to get it right, right?
Yeah.
And looking through the lens of children, because as you know, I've got 3 kids, so I don't have grandkids yet, but just casting my mind back, they don't have fear, right? Which is why they're so curious, which is why they're so playful. They don't have that super highway in the brain that's already ingrained that goes to that kind of response. And I loved the idea of approaching everything with the beginner's mindset, right? Like, okay, I don't know, like assume I don't know. What else is possible here? Yes, I might know this, but what else? Because we know no 2 brains think alike. And we know that we might know a lot, but somebody else might come up with something that is far better or, newer or more efficient or whatever the case may be. So that curiosity is so super, super important. And I like the idea of just being more playful, for crying out loud. Like going back to our childlike wonder and just going, I actually want to play a little bit more. Why do we have to be so serious about everything? And I think if we can do that, we definitely will start turning the tables or turning down the dial, right, on that fear state with the curiosity. So other than the beginner's mindset, I'm curious, is there a habit or a question that you have personally that helps you to stay curious?
Yeah, I just do this crazy little acronym PBA, which for me is Alison, pause, breathe, and ask a question. 3 things.
Oh,
Pause, breathe, and ask a question. At the moment, I'm intensely fascinated by a concept that is percolating into a potential book, which I may co-author with someone special in my life, but I'm definitely investigating and researching it. And that's this whole concept of silence intelligence, because I think we are living with so much noise in our own heads and in our environments that my personal capacity to stay curious depends on my capacity to find stillness and silence. And the answers to so many of the challenges we're now facing lie in that silence. They don't lie in the noise, because we don't necessarily know where we're headed. We can't think of the solutions to problems that are beyond human scale. But it's in the silence we're going to find our way. So for me, it's pause, breathe, always the breath, connect to breath. It's an incredible free resource. This down regulates our nervous system and activates our parasympathetic, the vagal nerve response. It brings the physiological calm, and then just ask a question. And there's a little caveat there. It needs to be a question you genuinely don't know the answer to.
I love that.
So that's my PBA, Leeanne.
Yeah, and I'm just thinking, that is going to be ingrained. I'm going to steal that from you, Ali, and use that going forward, because I think it's just such a simple acronym or a couple of letters. And the thing about breath is that it comes with us everywhere. We don't need something additional, in order to do this. We can actually just force still, breathe, and then ask that question. And in the silence, new insights arise. We hear those new connections. We've got the capacity to have new thinking, and which is exactly what's needed in today's society. And Ellie, you talked about all the noise, external and internal, and that I call that internal noise the itty bitty shitty committee. And I think, as we get older, it gets louder, it's more insistent, it doesn't stop. So finding that ability to be able to just come to silence, pausing, breathing, and then asking questions will turn down the dial on that internal narrative that is just always on. Well, for me anyway, I can only speak for my own mind, but it doesn't stop sometimes.
I think for most people, Leeanne, I've stolen that from you. Whenever I use itty bitty shitty committee, I always say, I didn't come up with this, but this is amazing executive coach who did. People love it because it feels so right. It is. And it's itty bitty shitty committee because it, generally speaking, is full of worry, rumination, negative self-talk. It's not a happy rumination.
No, it's not, oh, you're a legend, I love you, you're great. It's normally, you should have done this, you could have done that.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, that's
Absolutely.
right.
Yeah, and I think that Leanne, we talked about that in last week's episode as well. So it's amazing on just how prevalent and present that itty bitty shitty committee is and can be, and how we really need to take that self-awareness around it to have the right committee members on the stage, and which ones need to go stage left and which ones need to go stage right.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
with that, love the discussion about curiosity, and I literally learned a new area of intelligence. Silence intelligence was like, oh, it makes so much sense, but I didn't really ever think about it. So now we want to move into some questions around attention, focus, and managing overload.
Mhm.
So we live in today's present world in an age of information overload. And it's no longer about time management, but about attention management.
Mhm.
What does that mean for you when you hear attention management?
Mm. This is a really important question because every leader that I coach, and I'm privileged at the moment to be doing some C-suite coaching and for enterprise level organizations, there is a tremendous amount of chaos. And the demands on their time are beyond human scale. So time is our greatest resource, and needs to be deeply respected. But the only way we can get through the days that we are facing is through being really mindful of attention management, I believe. So where is our attention? Where is our attention flowing? Where is our energy going? And it's about choosing what gets into your mind. There's choice here, and that's an emotional intelligence skill set. Because we are living in this sort of attention economy, I think that's what psychologists calls it, where every ping and post and whatever just captures our attention, and we've got this. We know our brains can't multitask, and yet we're just being drawn hither and thither every few seconds. It's in the way that we work. So without conscious awareness, we might find our days are being shaped by other people's priorities and not our own.
Yeah.
And the awareness that we bring to this is critical. So we know that the more we switch tasks, our IQ actually goes down. Isn't that sad? We don't get smarter by attention switching. And even though we can recover quite quickly after a distraction, it still has taken a mental space. So the big question is, how do we really practically do this? What does it mean? And I thought about this a lot. The skills that I witness and observe, because look, a lot of leaders are mastering this. It amazes me. The extent to which they are developing the skill set. And like all skill sets, they're muscles. We can't go and buy them off the shelves at the supermarket. We have to invest energy, and we have to practice and practice and practice until we build the neural capability or the muscle to actually have behaviors embedded and ingrained. So the things that I've been watching and observing in people that I think do this well, I think they become very good at creating deep working blocks. So they will put their phones aside, they will block their pop-ups, and they'll create a time when their brain is fresh and their energy can go to a dedicated big chunk, big piece of work. It requires some deep thinking, and they allow themselves that dedicated space. So again, there's a boundary. You have to protect the deep thinking space, I believe. They don't think mindfulness and breath work are woo-woo. They understand that these are grounding skill sets. And in a moment of crisis, you can't be saying to people, trust me. No, it's the practice that you have for calm. Leeanne mentioned Barney, or brittle, anxious, non-linear, and incomprehensible. Well, anxiety is very prevalent in workplaces at the moment globally.
Mm-hmm.
And the antidote is calm. And so emotions are so highly contagious that part of this energetic focus is our capacity to be with and in calm. Again, here comes stillness. And it takes practice to focus our attention. Is a practice skill. We become very boundaried, I think, is another skill. We will put parameters around meetings. We will have, hopefully slightly shorter meetings. There's one concept I really like of Brené Brown's, which is we've got to learn to communicate more like Duplo and less like Lego. Okay. People can't take on vast swags of information. We can't drown people in vast, they've got a lot going on. So it's almost, this is like, think of Duplo, not Lego moment. And, I think daily reflections, what really helped me today, what mattered today, what did I do well today? Again, that whole feedback loop becomes important. And there's no question that micro breaks, again, silence. People don't, we get more focused and we manage our attention better when we give our brain micro breaks. And of course, make sure you've got enough good nutrition, because your brain takes about 25% of your calories every day. Mm-hmm. So have some healthy snacks handy is the other thing. So yeah, that's probably what I've witnessed and observed. And I love the work of Dr. Tara Swart. She's a neuroscientist who wrote, here's another couple of book recommendations. She wrote The Source, and she's recently written The Signs, which I enjoyed. So this is her quote. Activities like aimless lounging around, daydreaming, and reading for pleasure rather than purpose will activate the default mode network in the brain. When this network flourishes, inspiration is more likely to strike. So intellectual rest is part of the cycle of a thriving mind. It's not wasted time.
I love that you've said that, because I think so many people, myself included, would, we will get so busy doing work and we don't actually honor the self-care, the rest, the recovery that's needed in order to keep showing up. And I think it's so valuable that so if I'm sitting there and I'm just sloughing for a while, it's actually, my brain needs that, my nervous system needs it, and it's actually required so I can show up as my best self. I also really liked those points, Ali, around, deep working blocks, like eat that frog, set this time, have the boundaries, right? Make sure that you're honoring that whole stillness, calm, and those micro breaks to bring you back to that center state. And choosing what you focus on rather than just kind of being, my analogy is, at the moment, people are like a ball in a ping pong machine, right? Like you hit the flippers and this ball kind of bounces off all the rubbers and goes all over the place. And unless you actively choose what you're going to focus on, block the time out, have the boundaries in place, and come back to stillness and that silence within so you can reflect and come up with something new. We're going to be so frazzled in real time, and that's just not healthy. So I really valued that. Thank you. And in order to do some of these things, we've got to kind of have more of a growth mindset, right? And I mean, you and I know, and Jason, we know what a growth mindset is, but I'd love it, Ali, if you can speak to that just at high level. Like, what is a growth mindset and how can we develop more of that?
Thanks, Leeanne. So Carol Dweck is the famous author and founder of the concept of a growth mindset. And if you just think, we've been describing this kind of environment that we're in at the moment. This is the kind of mindset that opens the door to us remaining curious and actually developing a belief that where we are now is where we're stuck for the rest of history. Or how we came into this, this is as good as it's going to get. A growth mindset is a belief system. And it requires a level of awareness where we start to see our abilities, our intelligence, our talents, they can all be developed. It's going to be effortful, but the brain's neuroplastic and it can change over time. So with feedback and learning and persistence and effort and failing, setbacks, get it wrong, fall downs, we can be resilient, get ourselves back up, and with more effort, more learning, more curiosity, we stretch. And we develop and we shift and move forward in time. So it really matters because how we respond to the difficulties of these times, the anxiety, we've been talking about the AI, the uncertainty, the pace of change, and this deep, deep uncertainty people are facing. It shifts our focus from proving or potentially even trying to hold on to things as they are or were, to improving ourselves, our systems, developing the leadership capabilities in our people so they can also stand their strong ground. And so when people have a growth mindset, they start to see mistakes as information, as data, and not as shame. You know, Brené Brown has spent 3 decades exploring this very powerful emotional experience of shame. So you'll see more people asking questions rather than just hiding because they don't know. That people find their voice. People start seeing feedback as a gift. It is. It's an incredible gift, feedback. People will persist longer when times get hard. It's that grit and that motivation. And of course, it starts we see a trend towards a continuous learning culture, which is definitely one where psychological safety has a footprint and is growing. Yeah. So, you know, we've got to catch our itty bitty shitty committees that says we can't do it and say, yeah, we haven't quite mastered it yet. I'm continuously telling my children and my grandchildren to add yet to the ends of their sentences. And I guess focusing on improvement and not perfection. Perfectionism is heavy armor. It's very prevalent when in the deadly trainings, when we talk about perfectionism, so many hands go up. Yeah. And my hand up goes up too, because I'm a recovering perfectionist. But I think perfectionism is really heavy and you know, we've got to learn how to be kinder to ourselves in a way. Yeah, so culture influences, our mindset influences our culture. The more people that are practicing a growth mindset culture, and there are ways that that happens in organizations, just adding the word yet across the board seems to be incredibly powerful, just as a habit intervention. But yeah, this is a really important concept, Leanne.
Yeah. And if I can just say something to that, Ali, because adding the word yet actually ignites the motor neuron of our brain. It actually ignites the part of our brain that gets us moving, as opposed to, no, I don't know how to do that, which shuts it off, right? So that the power of yet is amazing. And the one thing that you said there, I mean, you said a lot of great things, but what came to mind for me is, you know, when we're not in a growth mindset, we hide, but we also hide mistakes. You know, we're not learning from previous experiences as organizations, as cultures, right? Because we're kind of trying to, because of the shame, push it under the carpet. So having creating a culture or an environment where people can fail forward. And what I mean by that is that, okay, we might not get it right. It might not have worked, but what did we learn and how can we carry that learning forward? So then we can keep doing that ongoing, and even in our own personal lives. You know, like it can show up everywhere. And I, like you, my kids are so sick of me saying yet at the end of their sentences. But that's not going to change. And they keep saying to me, Ali, Mum, is this not everything has to be a learning moment or a teachable moment? And I'm like, yep, it is. Everything is a learning experience. So.
Yeah, you chose me for a mum. You signed up for learning.
You signed up for this. You don't have a choice.
Yeah, absolutely. And, you know, I loved your, you know, what you said about perfectionism, Ellie, because I remember when we were in your Inspired Leadership Collective program. I mean, that was something that I really, really leaned in to work on. and really to move past. And even that yet part, even on things that you're working or building on, that you may not be to this place yet, it puts a different lens on, and it just puts a different feeling internally, like, okay, maybe it's not perfect, but we can move and get to that next yet part. So I just wanted to let you know that just how powerful your program was in moving me past my own perfectionism and getting me even further into this area of growth mindset.
Thank you, Jason. And there were people in the cohort you were in. Many people made big changes in their lives following that course, and I was kind of astounded by that until I thought, I wonder if it's because we are challenging things like perfectionism and trusting intuition. One of our capacities is intuition and purpose. And so people really had an opportunity to stop and self-reflect and become more self-aware on, it's going to take a lot of courage, personal courage in my life and leadership to make a big change for me. But after doing the ILC, that was like, go and do it. What are you waiting for?
Absolutely.
And Ali, actually, it was through the course that Jason and I created the idea of this podcast, and it's why this has come to pass, right? So,
Yes.
And I think it is because of that intuition, getting out of your own way with all that perfectionism and leaning into courage, right? It's like just leaning in, giving it a go. Again, it's called the Inspired Leadership Collective. And you need to do the course, right? I want you to speak to that at the end a bit, Ali, just so we can direct people to that, because it's so valuable. But anyway, I'll go back to you, Jason, because I've taken up the time again.
No, absolutely. So our next question, Alison, is, building upon that growth mindset around mental fitness, not illness, mental fitness. What advice could you give to our listeners on how an individual can cultivate that and build that?
There's a story in Strong Ground where Brené talks about little kids playing soccer, football. I know what to call it. In Australia, we call it soccer. And these little kids, the ball comes at them and they just kick it wherever. They're just, they reflex, they kick it wherever it goes. And so part of this developing of strong ground for ourselves is developing the capacity, which she calls, to settle the ball. So there's a lot coming at us. We've got to ground it, settle it at our feet, have that pause or that space to think, where is my next most courageous move? And I think, and then they kick the ball a little bit more strategically than, in the preferred direction. So to me, when I think mental fitness, I think it's our capacity to think more clearly, to manage our emotions. So there's a lot of emotional regulation in that moment in time and emotional agility. To keep that focus and respond to challenges with calm and flexibility. That's what I think of mental fitness. And once again, these muscles, like physical fitness strengthens our body, mental fitness strengthens our mind, our, head, heart, gut. The whole connected loop is all we need, this kind of fitness. It's a part of our resilience going forward. So Brené also talks about our need, and I hadn't heard her say this before Strong Ground, but she talks about our need to develop negative capability. This is interesting. And it's a difficult muscle to build. It's part of mental fitness. So we are wired to solve tensions and seek certainty. That's our brain wiring. Negative capability requires the courage to reach inward towards stillness rather than outward towards facts and reason. So we go inwards. And this capability helps us slow down and make sure we're not rushing to ineffective solutions. Now, Tara Swart, who I've quoted, she says mental fitness is our ability to meet life's challenges with a positive and an empowered mindset. It's another nice way of looking at it. And once again, the leaders that I have seen really grow this mental fitness, this kind of strong ground, they have attention focus for single tasking. They have the ability not to be thrown all over the place with their attention. They have breath work as a strength. They have built the muscle for calm. They can reframe. They're intensely curious. They're creative thinkers. They definitely have a growth mindset. So all these elements really come into this flexibility or this mental fitness. I love the word fitness here. Vulnerability and empathy and their incredible listening skills are well established and honed. And there's a daily values alignment. I don't think you can lead in these times without real clarity on your personal values.
Mm-hmm.
So there's a daily alignment with those clarity, with those values. And all of these things help you keep that strong ground. But it's a deep practice. And, you know, daring or transformational leaders prioritize time in their day to develop these skill sets.
Yeah. And I love that, prioritizing your self-care, right?
Yes.
In order to show up well. And I, you know, this idea of breath work, we've often talked about even just box breathing, which is simple to do. It's not a big ask, and yet it instantly calms that parasympathetic nervous system, and it instantly brings your focus back to the present, not in the past or the future. I think it's such an important skill that we all need to learn, because as we've said many times already in this conversation today, we're not going back to the way it was.
No.
Right. It's only going to get busier, crazier, more chaotic, more, there's more change, more of all of that. So we can't wait for that to happen. So we have to learn the skill of this, right? Of coming to stillness, coming to breath, choosing your focus. So important. And to that point, Ali, I mean, you and I have talked in the past about the idea of burnout and mental fatigue. It shouldn't be ignored. So I'm curious, what are some thoughts around that and some practical things that people can start? Like, how do they notice that they're burning out, I suppose, is the first question. And then what can we do?
Okay. So we could spend a whole day on this. Try and be succinct. I'll try and do the Duplo, not the Lego version. Burnout is not caused by overwork. You can work huge numbers of hours and not be experiencing the symptoms of burnout, but it is caused by our emotional needs being unmet for too long. So be unmet by ourselves or by other people. And it's a state of emotional, mental, and physical depletion. So how do people, you'll start to notice, and sadly, it's very prevalent. It creeps in quietly. And so we need to have the awareness when you start having trouble focusing and you're getting constantly distracted, you become a little bit cynical, which isn't your usual state of mind. You start forgetting things. You start losing that curiosity, maybe a bit irritable. Just little tells, really. A little bit of dread, a little bit of increased itty-bitty shitty committee steps up. You wake up, you've had a good sleep, but you're still tired. Physical changes, some headaches and things, and we start numbing on social media and other things. We just lose our joy. All of these things are warning signs something's going on.
And it's an epidemic, I would say, in today's culture.
Yeah.
And I know you've already spoken to some of the things that we can do in order to navigate that. Is there anything else that you would like to add?
I think name it. But when we name things, it doesn't empower them. It actually empowers us to do something about it. So being really honest, naming it, normalizing it. This is the human experience, it's common humanity. A lot of people are experiencing it. More self-compassion, and then really nourishing body and mind, like really step into self-care. And maybe more boundaries and some clear as kind conversations with your boss, your family, around what is it you're going to need to start building up that energy tank again.
Yeah. And a bit more play, I would think,
More
too.
play.
More play. Like I'm all for play now. Like after today, I
Yeah.
just want to play.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And Leanne, time in nature, I think we can't underestimate. Get your shoes off and just get out there, or go hiking, go swim in the ocean if you're near an ocean or in water, or, literally someone said to me the other day, Alison, I hug trees. Like, I'm sorry, but every time I walk past a tree, I just put my arms around it and feel it. And, I think we've just got to really earth ourselves more too.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Nature is a fantastic reminder. And I don't know, everyone that I speak to says a very similar thing, that spending time in nature instantly makes you feel better.
Yeah.
So would agree with that.
Yeah, but me personally, I actually prioritize an end of day practice. So, I think it tells my nervous system it's okay, and I close my laptop and I do a tiny bit of, I answer a few journaling questions, and I sometimes even change what I'm wearing. And I just take that few minutes, and then it's almost like that third space concept. And to me, that is really an energetic shift from one space to another. So I know a lot
I
of people
love
have
that. And an end of day ritual.
Yeah.
Love it.
Yeah.
So our next question, Ali, is why do you think there is still a stigma around getting help for our mental and emotional well-being? And how can we start changing the conversation around that so that coaching, mentoring, and even therapy are seen as acts of courage, self-awareness, and everyday strength, rather than the stigma of it being a weakness?
Yeah, this is another very, very good question, Jason. I think mental health in general carries a stigma still. There's been such a discourse around vulnerability being a weakness. And, whereas Brené's research shows absolutely vulnerability is the birthplace of all the good things we want more of in our life. And it's a most accurate measure of our strength and courage. So, but I think that isn't the discourse. The discourse is often it's a weakness, and to ask for help is seen as a sign of weakness. And so, yeah, for me personally, I think this is why coaching is such a valuable space, because it's that incredible safe space where people can really learn to name everything they're feeling. And this is the beginning and the birthing of resilience and emotional regulation and perspective taking, and people start to build the strength that are required for them to show up with all the many challenges that they have in their life and in their leadership, but with many more skill sets. Brené Brown would say she has never, ever worked with a transformational leader ever who did not have a coach and or a therapist. Leading people is brutally hard work. People are messy, and we don't innately have the level of self-awareness and the skill sets that it takes to understand our choices, to make sense, and to move forward in positive ways. So yeah, I am, of course I am, but highly, highly, highly recommend coaching for anyone who finds himself leading into a leadership position or in a leadership position.
Yeah, I love that, because coaching can take you from good to great, right? It's that solution focus. It's like, okay, this is what I know now, and how do I step into that next greater version of myself in a safe environment with somebody who can support that and hold that container. As you know, we're all coaches here, so we can sing to the praises of it. But I've also been coached multiple times, and the impact, and I've also had therapy, and the impact that both of those things have had on my life have been significant. So I love that, Ali. Well, our final kind of question that we're heading to today, and thank you so much. It's been such a valuable question.
Yeah.
But if you could bust a myth, what would it be? And what's something that you want to leave our listeners with around the thriving mind, and leading with curiosity and learning and focus?
The myth would be that vulnerability is a weakness.
Mm-hmm.
It's our most accurate measure of courage, and we need more courageous leaders. So that would be my myth. The one thing I would like to leave people with is be kind to yourself. Prioritize your self-care and stay optimistic, because even though we're in this big churning environment, every single day I hear stories of incredible hope and optimism and possibility. And each one of us showing up just that little bit differently in our days has a ripple effect. So stay positive, stay optimistic, stay hopeful, and be kind to yourself. That's what I would leave with you.
I will. I promise I'll take that on.
Me too.
Well, Alison, thank you so much for your generosity today, for your wealth of knowledge and experience around this topic. It almost makes me want to do another 3 podcasts with you just so we can dig deeper and dial down. But I just want to say thank you for your time.
Yes, thank you so much.
Lovely to be with you.
Wow, what an amazing conversation with Alison Lalieu from the Courageous Leadership Hub. I mean, such a wealth of knowledge and experience, and bringing in some of the science, the neuroscience, some of the skill set from Brené Brown, who's a scientific researcher in leadership. And the gifts that Ali has brought in today, like just re-listening to that, it's like, yes, I am doing a ritual at the end of the day. Yes, I am going to play more. Yes, I'm doing self-care. From this conversation, without a doubt, these are things that I think we all need to bring into our world.
Yeah, absolutely. Just so many gold nuggets, Leeanne, like just even the PBA, like just such a quick thing that, you can do anywhere, maybe not driving, but but if you do, like, just make sure you keep your eyes on the road, right? But just so many gold nuggets from her conversation, and really just viable practices that we can bring into today's incredibly complex and volatile world that we live in right now, that, like you said during the interview, is just going to get more crazy, more attention grabbing, more this, that, and the next thing. So just, I want to rewatch, this interview like 10 more times, because there are just so many gold nuggets.
Yeah, absolutely. I took notes during the original interview, and I've taken some more notes this time. Just
Me too.
for my own remembering, right? Because we are leaders, whether we lead our family, whether we're leaders in the workplace, we must lead ourselves. So all of these skills are so important for our own evolution, but also the ripple effect that we have on everybody around us. You'll often hear me say we need to be responsible for the energy we bring into the room. And that energy is our emotional energy, but also our mental energy, and our clarity and our capacity to think well, to make good decisions, to have a positive impact on those that are around us. And I think this conversation and the last few that we've had leading up to this have had a similar theme, right, around taking care of self first. And then the ripple effect of that towards everybody else is incredibly important in the world where people are stretched to capacity and feeling burnt out, and feel like they're running on a treadmill constantly. Yeah, like we're always kind of juggling multiple balls in the air. So that ability to just be at that PBA, pause, breathe, and then ask a curious question.
Yeah, absolutely. And just the just the thought around, it's like, if you don't have your mental health well-being, like, just so much is affected. And what's interesting is just how all of our episodes, once we got into dimension 1, 2, 3, they've just all have weaved together naturally. And just like she said, make sure you have healthy snacks around. Well, I remember when Coach PJ, was like around the whole nutrition piece. So it's just beautiful to see how this whole sphere of well-being, how it really is at the end of the day, interconnected to each other.
Yeah. So what I might do, Jason, is I'm going to just show some information about Ali.
Yes.
and her website. So I'm just going to go to that for anybody who might be interested in, following up with Alison Lalieu, her Business Courageous Leadership Hub, where she spends a lot of time coaching and delivering some of Brené Brown's products and courses, but also the other course that you and I have spoken to, this the Inspired Leadership Collective. And this particular program has probably been one of the most profound programs that I've done. And believe me, I am a learning addict, I will say.
Me too.
My name's Leeanne and I like to learn. And growth to me is one of the key skills. I mean, I've talked about Tony Robbins's 6 keys to, or, 6 human needs, and growth is one of them. And if we can focus on growth, it has us feeling better and the capacity then to give back. And this particular program for me was so different to any other program that I've done, because it really was an inside job. We
Yeah.
explored things like our internal perfectionism and how we can navigate that space. We explored the itty bitty shitty committee and how to turn the dial down on that. We explored self-care. We explored self-awareness. We explored that intuition and leaning into that, and courage. And all of these things are internal, right? So to be a leader in today's environment, we need to shift who we are internally so we can show up at our best. So,
Absolutely.
that whether you're a coach, whether you're a leader, and whether you're somebody who just wants to learn some more skills to navigate your own internal world so you can show up more effectively, this course, the Inspired Leadership Collective, is probably one that I can highly recommend more than many others that I've done. What would you like to say about it?
Yeah, absolutely, Leanne. And two of the biggest things that I got out of this program was, and they really kind of build on each other, right? Is the area of vulnerability, which Alison talked, in our interview, and just, when you're in that true state of vulnerability, like what actual magic can come to life and occur if you allow yourself to be vulnerable and lean into it, lean into the fear or the scare, being scared that comes along with it. And at even a more profound level, but I think it was me leaning into that vulnerability that really got me to really think about my true purpose.
Yeah.
And I'm in my late 40s and I'm like, okay, it's not like I'm in my 20s anymore, my early 30s, where it's like, oh, I have years and years and years to think about this, but really kind of thinking about, like, what do I want my true purpose to be? And so it actually, being in this program actually helped me launch my consulting practice, the Neural Collective. And then obviously, like you talked about, in the interview, us putting together and bringing forth Let's Talk, this podcast. So I really can say that this program totally changed me at a vulnerability level and also at a purpose level, to start doing things for me versus always doing everything and giving all my talents to others and other organizations that may not at the end of the day fully appreciate my talent, So I have to say that those two things are the two profound things that I got from this program. So like you, I literally can't recommend this program highly enough.
Yeah. And something that you said there I thought was really interesting around vulnerability and then courage. So vulnerability to lean into the discomfort, and then the courage to take the steps to do something different. And the other thing that I heard you say there was boundaries, like actually putting boundaries in place around, this is no longer aligned with me and I choose to do something different. And, the B word, boundaries, can be a really difficult thing for many people because of our need to be liked and our need to be connected. we often don't say no to things, and then we're the ones that are stretched to
Yeah.
capacity. So being able to put those boundaries in place, right, and go, actually, thank you, but no, this is
Yeah.
this is my purpose. This is what I'm leaning
And
into.
that
This is
courage
what I'm
to
through.
be able to say no, right?
Yeah,
Because oftentimes, now being an entrepreneur, right, it's kind of the no and yes thing has a different kind of feel and meaning. But
yeah,
when you do work internally, which I did for all of my career except for pretty much now, right? Was that it was difficult to put those boundaries up because you're like, well, if I say no, is that going to have a check mark to say no promotion, or whatever it may be, whatever narrative we tell ourselves. Um so I think you hit something really key there, is that courage to take the steps and then the boundaries to put up, which I mean, I know, and I can honestly say for a lot of my career I wasn't comfortable putting up the boundaries that I needed to put up.
Oh, it took me 50 years to learn that, Jason. 50 years. And I'm still got my training wheels on, but I'm definitely better than I
All
was
right.
when it comes to boundaries. Yeah. So
Absolutely.
we might move into the book recommendations that Ali said.
Absolutely.
So let me share that screen um, around these book recommendations. So a couple of things that Ali spoke about was Strong Ground by Brené Brown. And this is kind of a deeper dive and from Dare to Lead. It's the tenacity of paradox. And I love that word paradox because oftentimes things are a paradox. We can feel happy and sad at the same time, or vulnerable and excited, or, and there's often this kind of struggle between two, what feels like almost competing or opposite things. So being able to navigate that space of paradox in our world right now, I think is really, really interesting.
And then next, which Alison talked about quite a bit, was the Dare to Lead book, and by Dr. Brené Brown, just a pivotal book. It's both in hardback, also through Audible, and also she has a podcast on it too. So definitely take a look at Dare to Lead. So many gold nuggets there. I don't know if there's anything you additionally want to say on the Dare to Lead book, Diane. I mean, Diane. Leanne.
You can call me anything you like, just not late for dinner. Yeah, no, I've read Dare to Lead. I've also done the Dare to Lead program. I've been trained in that. And, you know, she often talks about courage and curiosity and the ability to be able to have tough conversations. Brené calls them rumbles, but it gives you practical skill sets on how to do that. So it's a fantastic book to read. Now, Tara Swart is the next one that Ali mentioned, and there's two books by Tara. One is called The Source, and it's The Secrets of the Universe, the Science of the Brain. So Tara's really great at bringing together science and spirituality almost, like this whole concept of intuition as a scientific thing, as opposed to it being very woo-woo. So she's got two books, The Sign, the Source was her first, and then The Sign, around that intuition piece. So I started The Source. I haven't quite read them, but I've got them both. And these two books have come up about 6 times for me in the last few weeks, where people have gone, oh, you need to listen to this. Tara also has some podcasts, and she's been interviewed a lot. So look out for her because there is some really good information on, like I say, blending science, spirituality, intuition into our mainstream life.
Yeah, and just before going into the last book recommendation, is to also note that Dr. Tara Swart is also a neuroscientist. So lots of just lots of great stuff there. So I just wanted to make sure that folks know that she is also a neuroscientist.
Yeah.
The last book recommendation is the Resilience Agenda Mental Fitness Diary and Planner. And this is, I actually have it in my checkout box to order for 2026. So it'll be my first time using it. I actually learned about it in a book club that Leeanne and I are both part of. So really looking forward to digging into that and to really see how I can, just make my mental fitness that much stronger on a day-to-day basis and to continue my own powerful resilience that I know I have internally. Is there anything you'd like to say? And Leeanne, I don't know if you've ever used this particular
I haven't
planner.
yet, but like you, I have, it is in my checkout box because it is something that I'm actually going to invest in. And one of the coaches that I work, or that we, I should say, work very closely with, uses this resilience agenda mental fitness diary, and she gives it to all of her clients. And apparently in the book, there's, or in the diary, there's all sorts of tips and tricks around your mental fitness and different things that you can do to navigate that space, to build the muscle of that agility, and that, as Ali says, that strong groundedness that we need to navigate today's space. So I would highly recommend the Resilience Agenda Mental Fitness Diary and Planner, and you can actually purchase that from the Resilience Agenda website. So go there if you want to have a look at it. It's a great diary, and like I say, it's been highly recommended to us also.
Yeah, and it also comes in all different colors too.
Yes, very pretty. So, pretty colors.
Right, exactly. So it's just not pink and blue.
Yeah. Although I think I'd probably go the blue or pink. Anyway, that's that. And shall we move into top tips?
Absolutely.
So our tips for today, based on the conversation that we've had with Ali, is really vulnerability is a superpower. It is not a weakness. To be able to call out and have courageous conversations around what's going on, what you need as support, and taking on a coach, a therapist, a mentor, whatever it is to get you from good to great, to help you build that mental muscle that we need so we can show up as the leaders that we need to be in the environment that we're in. And vulnerability, I mean, Brené Brown talks about this all the time. And Jason, you've kind of said that when we were talking about the Inspired Leadership Collective course, is that leaning into vulnerability is where freedom lies, right? It's where freedom lies. It's where courage can show up. It's where curiosity can be at the forefront of what we do. We don't have to be stuck in these rigid processes anymore. So yeah, I really just wanted to double and triple click on vulnerability being the superpower that it is, and then curiosity is the cure-all for everything that's going on for us in our environment.
Yeah, absolutely. And to build on that, the second tip, which we were talking about just a little bit ago, and then also Ali brought into our interview earlier this week, is PBA, the practice of pausing, breathing, and asking those curious questions. And I think this is also, for those coaches who are watching, this is something that is amazing that you could bring into a coaching session with your client and give them as a practice to work on outside of session, right? And that importance of building in that silence intelligence. I mean, I remember when Ali brought that up, both Leeanne and I were like, oh wow, silence intelligence, like, okay, this is something to like take a step back and noodle on, and the power that it has to bring in that curiosity and to give your brain that space to think, be creative, to be calm, etc. And then also what falls under PBA is healthy boundaries, which we talked about, and having that courage and that vulnerability to develop healthy boundaries, even if they are in small strides or steps. And then I'll hand it over to you for the third tip.
Yeah, I mean, neuroscience tells us that our greatest ideas come in silence. They don't come in the noise. If you
Mhm.
think about your own life and where you normally get those aha moments, it's often in the shower or when you're walking or when you're cooking or when you're driving. It's often in the silence. It's not in the chaoticness of our world. So, giving yourself that gift of stillness so that way your brain can come up with all new connections and ideas. It is such a important thing, and neuroscience backs it. It's not a woo-woo thing. It's in the silence. It's in the stillness. It's when we're not focused directly on the problem that we can actually get new ideas, or our brain makes connections in new ways, and we get those aha moments. And then the
Absolutely.
last one that I loved and I really want to bring to life, and I've actually started doing this already since our conversation with Ali, is this idea of an end of day ritual. And the end of day ritual is really, shifting our state from, okay, working to now not working. And Alison mentioned things like, shutting down the computer with intention, doing a little bit of reflection work, like what worked today, like journaling it out, what worked, what did I do well, what am I proud of, and what did I learn, or what could I do better next time? So having that reflective practice allows us to observe our life and to make the changes that we need to make. So that end of day ritual for me, I thought was just such a beautiful thing to go from the workspace that we're in and the craziness to our home space or our fun space or our play space or whatever
Space.
it is that you want to bring in. Like, can you see? I'm really addicted to fun now. Like, it's like, yes, I want more of that.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think, this end of day ritual really speaks powerfully to during our interview and conversation with Ali is that, as we proceed through the future, things are only going to get crazier and busier and more attention grabbing. And this end of day ritual, even if it's 5 minutes or even if it's 10 minutes, is going to be so important to individuals and humanity's mental well-being, emotional well-being, physical well-being, which are the first three dimensions that we've talked about. So so I just wanted to kind of bring forward like how important this is in the future now,
Yeah.
but also in the future and way down the road in the future.
Yeah, because it is a practice and a muscle. So we need to kind of do this now for the benefits tomorrow and all the tomorrows, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Now, Jason, would you like to introduce our guest for next session, our next conversation that we have?
Yeah. So this will be episode 5, dimension 4, and it is going to be on spiritual well-being, a 360-degree well-being journey. So how everything that we've talked about up to this far folds into one spiritual well-being. Just to know, it's not going to be religious, all that. It's on the other end of the teeter-totter in the area of spiritual well-being. We have a guest expert from Southern India, Jatish Mogli. He is the 360-degree chief of well-being of Wisdom 360. He is just a gem and comes with so much experience from the corporate world, with companies like Microsoft and Deloitte. He's been a coach and trainer for 12 years, and he's done over 500 training sessions for diverse audiences, and also an award-winning passionate well-being coach, celebrated by several corporate organizations. So we are just delighted to have Jatish join us next week for episode 5, Spiritual Wellbeing, a 360 Wellbeing Journey.
And if I can just jump in with that, like spirituality to me means living in alignment with your purpose and your true north and
Yep.
finding the stillness. So it's not, it might be a little bit woo woo, but there'll be a lot of science-backed stuff in this one as well. So I encourage you to come and have the conversation with us because we are spiritual beings having a
Yes.
human experience. And when we can come to that center of alignment, purpose, and passion, our lives are just so much better. So I'm very much looking forward to our conversation next week.
Yes, me too.
So we are coming to the end of our conversation today.
Yes, my gosh, just gives me goosebumps just thinking about our conversation today and just all the richness and gold nuggets and everything to really reflect upon. So with that, Leeanne and I and Let's Talk would love to thank you for joining us for today's conversation on mental and intellectual well-being, the thriving mind, curiosity, learning, and focus, where that conversation just came to light with so much richness with our conversation and interview with Alison.
Yeah. And as always, we really hope that we've sparked something new for you, whether it's been an insight, a fresh perspective, or even just a question now that is worth exploring even further.
Yeah. Our mission here at Let's Talk is always simple: to have the conversations that matter and to remind you that you don't have to do this thing called life and all of its complexities on your own and to figure it out on your own. We are here as your friend to have the conversations, the difficult conversations, the good conversations, just all the conversations together. And we hope that you enjoyed today's episode. And I'll hand it over to Leeanne to close us out.
Yeah. So as usual, you know what I'm going to say here. If you liked our episode today, please feel free to share it with a friend, subscribe, hit the like button, and keep the conversation going together with us. And also, if there's a topic that you would like us to bring in or something that you'd like us to discuss, please don't hesitate to let us know because we love having these conversations. We love having our guest speakers on, and we would love to be able to answer questions that are bubbling up in the background for you. So again, like, subscribe, share, and join us again next week.
Because when we talk,
we really talk.
And anything is possible.
So let's talk.
With real conversations.
And limitless possibilities. Thank you so much, everybody. It has been our pleasure today.
Yes. See you next week.